Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So listen, we are going to be talking this morning about the escalating situation in the Middle East. So for those of you guys who've not noticed, we're kind of in a little bit of a pickle at the moment. And I'm talking about UK audiences right now, essentially. We are in this really strange position where we have lots of people living in the United Kingdom who would claim to be, Muslims or Islamic, and they will be allied to the Iranian regime. That's, there's no denying that. There's no argument there. We have a large number of sleeper cells from what we can, from what we're told from mainstream media, that are Iran-backed sleeper cells, that are living, operating, in the United Kingdom. So tensions in the Middle East have escalated dramatically overnight, with Donald Trump issuing what amounts to a stark ultimatum to Iran. Reach a meaningful deal on your nuclear program within 10 to 15 days or face very serious consequences. Now, if you live in the United Kingdom, and I do, if and when this bombing starts, that is a trigger warning for you guys. It literally is. Yesterday I've gone into this quite a bit. So if you want to know what I'm talking about this, go and check out a video I did yesterday. It was Prepping 101, Iran, basically, trigger warnings. And I just want to keep reiterating, every time I talk about Iran, before these airstrikes happen, right? When the airstrikes happen, that should be your trigger warning to take action. What action? Go and check out my other videos, guys, because I've done it, and I don't want to I don't want to go over things I've done on previous videos. But if you've got any burning questions, please ask away. So speaking yesterday at a meeting of his newly formed Board of Peace in Washington, is it me, or does this board of peace seem like some war commission or something? So Donald Trump was speaking yesterday at his newly formed Board of Peace in Washington, and later aboard Air Force One. I like his speeches on Air Force One, guys. I think they're cool. DJT was blunt. He said the world would know within roughly 10 days whether a deal was possible, but extended that to a maximum of 15 days. His words: we're either going to get a deal done for that, or it's going to be very unfortunate for them. And then more anonymously, very bad things will happen. Bad things will happen. So, I don't think he's mincing his words. I think everybody knows what's coming. And, with the previous military, it wasn't even a military operation, was it? It was a police operation into Venezuela. His words have teeth now, because you get a lot of presidents and a lot of people saying, oh, this will happen and we can't do this. Yeah, with this president and with the administration in America, you can put your, you can set your watch by that, right? So what he's saying, Donald Trump, is bad things will happen if Tehran doesn't come to the table and agree terms that prevent Iran from ever acquiring a nuclear weapon or continuing to threaten regional security. Remember, this is not empty rhetoric anymore. The United States has been rapidly building up its military presence in the region, the largest concentration of US forces in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. And I'm going to say they're going to have to have more. I'm going to say they're going to need more. They're going to need more firepower than they did in Iraq, basically. We're talking about 2 U.S. aircraft strike carrier groups now converging. USS Gerald Ford, which is the biggest ship ever made. The biggest ship ever made, the biggest warship ever made, certainly. I don't know if there's a cruise liner that's bigger. I don't think there is. Hundreds of fighter jets, F-35, F-22s, F-18s, F-16s have been deployed to bases across the Gulf, plus in Europe. Dozens of air-to-air refueling tankers, airborne warning craft, missile defenses. there's a lot of military going in there. And when you talk about the naval option, right? You've got these, these naval options moving in there. They also carry special forces with them. So on probably, I don't know where they'll be. They'll probably be on the aircraft carriers, right? Because you would want the special forces to get on the helicopters and then go inland. So these will carry, I'm assuming Navy SEALs, and they will be on the back of these aircraft carriers, and they will be ready to conduct strike operations, limited strike operations, and that's how I see this war panning out. I don't think, initially at least, I don't think there's going to be a big ground invasion like there was in 2003 in Iraq. I see this starting as a air campaign with limited US Special Forces strikes, taking high-value targets, taking military leaders, pretty much taking whoever they want, right? Once that whole south coast has been softened, then you might see a beachhead. Now, this is an armada that's heading to the Middle East, and it's not. These are real options, guys. This is giving a real sustainable option now in the Middle East, because these aircraft carriers, they're like floating cities. They come with a whole host of goodies on board, Tomahawk missiles and all sorts of stuff that we probably don't even understand. Reports from sources close to the president's administration suggest Donald Trump is actively weighing an initial military strike on Iranian targets, possibly nuclear facilities or military infrastructure, as leverage to force Tehran back to the negotiating table, kind of like a preemptive strike, right? Some discussions have even floated timelines for this as early as this weekend, with no final decision being made. Now, when we hear things like this, we've got to then put into context what's happening on the ground in Iran. So on the ground in Iran, the Iranians are like scurrying around and fortifying everything, right? So the nuclear facilities, what we know from, and I'll share some stuff with you guys in a minute, what we know from satellite, open source satellite images, I think it's from a French satellite, I don't know. Just for context, if you guys don't know, anyone can buy satellite images of anywhere. I'm pretty much sure anywhere. So there are satellites going around. If you've got the money, they're quite expensive. You can buy up-to-date satellite photos. So I'm pretty sure that's where this has come from. Somebody's bought those satellite photos and then they're analyzing them. This is open source intelligence. What we know is that they are fortifying those locations. So every hour, every day that there are no military strikes in Iran, there's more concrete being poured. There's more fortifications. There's more, it's going to be harder, right? So I don't know what the metric would be. Let's just say it's, let's just say the difficulty level right now to take out to destroy these nuclear facilities or strike them again. Let's just say right now the difficulty level is 5, right? Let's just say it's a level 5 mission or whatever. If we keep leaving that, it's going to be 10 soon, then it's going to be 20, then it's going to be 50, and then it will just be unachievable by the air. So the aim, according to those that have been briefed, would be to strengthen America's hand without immediately spiraling into all-out war. But the risks of escalation are obvious. If you live in Britain, this matters hugely. Okay? We've already seen strain on the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom, and the United States, where, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer so far has withheld consent for RAF sites to be used for airstrikes in Iran. Oil prices are reacting sharp. Brent crude oil is pushing up towards a 6-month high, fearing a war in the Middle East and the disruption to shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. That's happening. And what I've not heard any mainstream media talking about this, guys, yet. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you're on and you guys, want to know what's happening in the future and you want my take on things, and you want me to tell you what's actually coming and how it's going to affect you, Make sure you like all those things down below, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, bell notification. Like, I don't even know where they are. They're down there somewhere. Like, there's some buttons that you guys need to press. Really helps me out when you guys do that. Nobody on the mainstream, like zero, nobody is talking about what will happen to sleeper cells in the United Kingdom if these airstrikes go in. And I'm going to say that they're going to be activated. I'm going to say a big shamool is going to go up and they are going to say, right, everybody just activate everywhere. We don't care now. You've got to understand the supreme leader. You've got to have a look at, you've got to understand his age, his ideology, his, his life philosophy. He believes he's in a holy war now. He believes he's absolutely in a holy war, and he believes that he needs to win that holy war. Of course, avoid wars at all costs, but if you're in them, you've got to win them at all costs. So that's what the supreme leader now is going to be thinking. He's at an age, he knows he's not going to get another war. He knows he's not got long left. He's at the end of his time, right? So that's that direction of travel right now, guys. So I will be I'm going to be keeping my eyes on this, of course. But I just want this as explanation to what's happening in the Middle East. And I've got more to talk about as well. But also, I need to keep reiterating this. This is an absolute trigger warning. If you live in the United Kingdom, this is a trigger warning, because when this goes down, and it will, that is a trigger warning for everyone, because those sleeper cells, the activation of those sleeper cells becomes highly likely when those first bombs go in, right? And it's not just the sleeper cells as well. It's the lone wolf. It's the stabby. It's the rammy. It's the people with mental health. It's the people with, you see, all you have to do is create a little bit of chaos and people will join in. There are bad people, guys. Trust me, there are bad people in our country right now. There are bad people who wouldn't think twice about going stabby, rammy, blowy, poisony. That's the reality. So guys, listen, okay? I will keep reiterating this. This is an absolute trigger warning, all right? A trigger warning. When you see those airstrikes go in, take that as a trigger warning, as a personal warning, all right, to take action. And I mean that to everybody, like everybody across the world, actually. Like, if you are alive and you live in the world, when those airstrikes go in, that should be a trigger warning, all right? We're already seeing spikes in oil prices, which is going to be, it'll probably be on the petrol station today. Diesel, I would say diesel's going to get removed from the shelves because the militaries use diesel. Right, let me get some comments and then I'll continue. Natalie just hit the nail on the head. Natalie's just hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. UK is refusing to prescribe them or allow the US to use bases out of the fear of the activation. And she obviously means the activation of sleeper cells. Absolutely right, Natalie. Look, I said to everybody that this would happen. Like maybe like if you go and watch my earlier videos, I was talking about these diversions, and it has to happen. This diversions has to happen. Exactly for the reason Natalie's saying there. The UK is clearly refusing to prescribe, I think she's talking about the IRGC, what's it called? Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Is that it? Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, yeah. The IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, as a terrorist organization, and is also refusing to let the United States use UK bases out of the fear of activation. Now, I'm going to give a caveat to that, because the elephant in the room is RAF Akatere on the southern tip of Cyprus. RAF Akatere will be used, guys. That will be used. It's very isolated. Nobody can really tell if it's being used or if it's not being used. But that will. I'm saying that RAF Akatere will be used because of its proximity. It will be used for logistics. It will be used for air-to-air refueling, and I would say lots of US aircraft will be used in that base. Trump did say an ocean is our defense. Yes. Okay. So I think Donald. Okay. So I think in that context, you guys have got the Atlantic and the Pacific on either side of you. So like, very difficult to mount a military assault across the Atlantic or the Pacific, especially when you're trying to attack a country with the world's biggest air force and the world's second biggest air force and the world's biggest navy. It's not going to end well if anybody tries to attack the United States. Googleinos is saying Trump directs US government to release files on alien and extraterrestrial life. Yes, he does, guys. He does, and I'm going to come back on later on today, and I'm going to do a longer live stream on that, guys. I'm going to do a longer live stream just dedicated to that. I want to fixate on what I want to concentrate on what we're talking about. On the Trump-Iran, bad things will happen. And I want this to be a trigger warning for everyone in the United Kingdom. And Victor Meldrew has become a member. Thank you very much, Victor Meldrew, for becoming a member. You're most welcome. You're most welcome. And I hope and I know that you are going to be, and I know as you already are, a powerful contributor to this channel with some fantastic insight. Carlin 2810 is saying the only thing the West export is war. Why is the Iranian military a terrorist organization, but the US military isn't? Do a body count and see who the real terrorists are. Yeah, it's a difficult one, right? I totally understand this, right? Listen, the West export more than, the West export a lot more than like war, although I totally understand that. Listen, well, let me just throw this out there, right? One of the things I always say on this channel, and sometimes I think people like maybe misunderstand. I think all wars are pointless, right? I do. I think all wars are pointless. Literally 10 years after that war's finished, everything will be back to normal and nobody will care. Nobody will care. I think humans need to stop fighting each other. Literally stop having wars among each other and start building spaceships. That's where I want to see the future of humanity going. I hope it can happen in my lifetime. I think it will. I think it will. That's the future I want to wake up to, right? I want to wake up and look at the news feed. Can you imagine the difference in society? Can you imagine, the difference? Can you imagine the difference in like how you would feel waking up in the morning and seeing all this beautiful new technology and humans going into the stars and like a new world for your children, a new like colonizing, colonizing the moon, putting a colony on Mars, putting a floating city around Venus, rotating habitats, asteroid mining, solar panels around the sun. Wouldn't that be a better future? Like to wake up to? The headlines would just be as big. The big prime companies would make just as much money, but we wouldn't be killing each other. So I think that's where we should go. So Carlin is saying why is the Iranian military a terrorist organization? Well, one could argue that the infiltration of Britain and the assertion of sleeper cells in our society ready to attack its people would be terrorist organization. If you consider the definition of a terrorist organization as someone who intend to do harm, conduct harm or violence to forward a political, religious or racial aims. So if in that context, that definition of terrorism, then, they kind of would be. Right, I'm going to jump down, guys, and I've got some more to talk about. Carlin is saying, can't have spaceships when you spend anything on military contracts. I know. Listen, Carlin, I say this all the time. Mate. Like the amount of money we spend on bombs and bullets that just explode and you get nothing back from that. No, let's just say, guys, I want to keep this. I've got quite a bit more to get through. Let's just say you spend $500 on an artillery shell, right? That artillery shell is going to explode. right? It's going to be, you're wasting your money because you're not producing anything apart from explosions, right? That artillery shell for your $500, or so, some of them are a lot more, guys. If you're looking like, you know, you can get smart artillery shells and they're a lot more. But whatever, artillery shell, $500. That $500 is then going to go and cause maybe $2,000 worth of damage, maybe even more. So now you're seeing that all this money is being spent and we're not achieving anything. We're not achieving anything as humanity. It's crazy, guys. It's crazy. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am talking. You're speaking hypothetically, Raven. I usually do. The Tankler. Hello, Tankler. Tankler, is this your first comment? I hope it. Right, Tankler, if this is your first comment, welcome to the channel. You're most welcome. Give me more context. Yeah, okay, so right, let's jump back on track, guys. Let's jump back on track. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk today, we are talking today about the escalating situation in Iran. As Googleinos is saying there, where's Googleinos' comment go? As Googleinos is saying there, you know, there could be military strike within days. Now, if it's going to happen, it'll probably happen today, guys. I'm just saying that if it's going to happen soon, it's probably going to happen today, right? Trump is saying bad things will happen if a deal has not been reached. And if you live in the United Kingdom, which I know a lot of you do, if you live in the United Kingdom, this is an absolute trigger warning, because as soon as those airstrikes go into Iran, Iran, you've got to understand that the risk and the likelihood of sleeper cells being activated in the United Kingdom goes up drastically. It does. It goes up drastically. And if anybody wants to argue with me and say that it doesn't, honestly, just like, you know, think logically. Right, so I'm going to go off this article here. More US military flights seen over Europe as images show fortifications at Iran facility. Now, this is all about these fortifications that are being built in Iran. So every hour, more, literally right now, every hour, more concrete is being poured over those nuclear sites, right? So the longer you leave it, the more concrete's going to be poured, right? Up to a stage where you just won't be able to get in. There'll be too much concrete. You know, the Iranians, this is what I would do. The Iranians have probably looked at their facility and thought, right, you know, the facility, it's not, you know, we can still use the facility. Yeah, it's had a kick in the face, like the Death Star. You know, like the Death Star on the, go on, Star Wars. I watched Spaceballs the other night. I was going to say Space Not. Like the Death Star, it took a beating, right? It took a beating when Luke used the Force. You know, Luke went down there with his little laser cannon. Can you imagine, like, you could have welded a grate over that, and it would, you know, that exhaust, and you would have been fine. Like, can you imagine the design? Can you imagine the engineers in the back room who didn't put an exhaust vent over this? Anyway, look, well, let's just go with it. So, like the Death Star in Star Wars, you know, you can still take a beating and be operational. And that's where I think they are. So everybody's talking about these bunker busters. And look, guys, I'm not taking anything away from the US military. Like the US Air Force on their bombing run. What a fantastic mission. What an awesome mission from their stealth bombers, guys. Like honestly, you're just like, wow, what an absolute flex from the United States. They can strike any target anywhere in the world, anytime they want, with impunity. So these bunker busters, they have to be going perfect. Is that perpendicular? I think it is. It's not perpendicular. They have to be going horizontal, sorry, perfectly horizontal, you know, and hit the ground at 90 degrees. Now, what happens if they don't hit the ground at 90 degrees? So to hit at 90 degrees, you get all the force on the point of the munition, right? Now, the problem is First of all, the ground is unknown. They don't know what the makeup of the ground is. Yes, they can speculate, they can analyze, they can have a best guess, but they don't know what the makeup of that ground was. Now, if that ground has undulating rock, and there's all sorts of things that can go wrong here. So as that munition's falling down, if it can't slightly, either way, then what happens is the force isn't going there. Just if you go slightly on the side, then what happens? All this area is buffering that force. So rather than all the force going down, you get this. And you may not get an effective as an effective strike as it would be deemed necessary to take out those nuclear sites. However, striking the nuclear sites has shown the Iranians that the Americans know where they are, right? And they have the capability to strike them. So makes no sense now to have them camouflaged, right? You might as well just pour a shit ton of concrete on there and keep going. Literally keep going. More concrete. Yes, we bring concrete from Russia. So that's what's happening right now, and it's going to make it harder and harder and harder, obviously, to be able to strike through those things. Right, listen, guys, there is a little. I'm not going to go aliens. I'm going to do another aliens one later. So the headlines that I just shared with you guys there from BBC, more US military flights seen over Europe as images show fortifications at Iranian facility. Now, this is referring to the ongoing US military buildup in the Middle East. And this is the largest buildup since the Iraq, since the 2003 Iraq invasion. There's I get that frog in my throat around about this time every day. So there are flights, there are lots of aircraft landing in air bases along Europe, around the around the Middle East. You've got air-to-air refueling tankers like the KC-130, heavy transport planes, C-17s. You've got surveillance and command aircraft, E-3 AWACS. You've got fighter jets, the F-22 Raptors, F-35s, F-35Bs, Fighting Falcons, F-15s, F-16s, F-18s, all sorts of aircraft, and we're seeing this on flight radar, are moving from the United States through Britain to Iran, to Europe, to strike positions that are in that region. Now, these US military aircraft have their transponders on, which means, do you know what? It's not even a transponder, is it? What I'm getting at here is the US military, they don't need to fly with their transponders on. They don't need to do that. So they're obviously letting people know that they're moving, they don't have a stealth bomber with the stealth bombers don't have the transponders on, right? So what I'm saying here is, they are letting people know, they're letting the Iranians know how much shit they're taking down there, right? These flights are routing from US bases through hubs in the UK, i.e. RAF Lakenheath and RAF Mildenhall. They're going through Germany, Ramstein. I love a bit of Ramstein, guys. I do. Ramstein. They're going through Spain, Greece, Bulgaria, and onward to Middle Eastern locations like Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Ali Hadid. But great airport, Ali Hadid, guys. If anybody's ever been to the base on Ali Hadid, it's a lovely little base. Bahrain, potentially Dubai, although I've not been able to confirm that. This pattern suggests the establishment of an air bridge to sustain long-range, sustained operations in the region. And it's that sustainability that's key. It's that sustainability, guys, that's key. You need to get that stuff out there. You need to get that mass of kit and equipment out there. And it takes time. It takes time to get that out there. You can't just click yes, the aeroplanes, they fly pretty fast, but what do? They drop 2 ton of munitions and then that's it. It's nothing. You need sustainability. So you need ships, you need aircraft, you need heavy load, you need mass, you need fuel, you need munitions, you need food, you need water. Now there are 2 and possibly a third aircraft carrier strike group heading for the region. So we already know the USS Abraham Lincoln is already on station. The USS Gerald Ford is transiting towards the Mediterranean. They may even be there now. There's dozens of combat, additional combat aircraft. They've been repositioned. When people think about these strike carrier groups, and I'm hearing that they may be sending another one. I don't know what the name of that strike carrier group would be. It's not just the aircraft carrier, right? The aircraft carrier is a floating city, right? They are more than capable of defending themselves. There's battleships, frigates. I don't know. I'm not a naval guy, but there's a lot of other ships that go with that. Potentially submarines. I think submarines will go with those things, right? Reports of preparations for weeks long of operational strikes if ordered. On the Iranian side, recent satellite imagery analysed by, I just shared it with you guys there, BBC Verify. And look, I totally understand the hesitation with BBC at the moment. And I get that. I have to go off something, right? So I'm going off the BBC for a couple of reasons. One, it's mainstream, everybody can find it. Two, if I share with you guys things from the BBC, I can't get done for fake news, right? Because we all know that the BBC does not fake news at all. So several military complexes in Iran that are sensitive to the airstrikes in 2024. New concrete shielding and sarcophaguses have been built over several facilities, then covered with soil to create a hardened bunker that's harder to detect or even damage from the air. Tunnel entrances near the nuclear facilities have been dug out and rebuilt and refortified with new concrete and backfilled with earth. Repairs and reinforcements are still ongoing at various locations in Iran. These Iranian moves are seen as defensive preparations, burying or shielding underground or sensitive infrastructure to reduce vulnerability to precision airstrikes or bunker busters. In context, all this ties into a high stakes standoff between the United States and Iran. The United States have written in their doctrine, written in their laws, as somebody wrote earlier on, maybe in another live stream, that the United States have made it quite clear in United States law doctrine, House resolution. I don't know how it works in the United States, but tis written in law in the United States that the United States will take all action necessary to prevent Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon, and two, support freedom of action of any regional actors who also want to prevent Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon. It is written in law. It is written. The Iranians, on the other hand, they've been quite clear. They've been saying, look, you guys are throwing bunker busters over. We need nuclear weapons to protect ourselves. So, you will literally have an immovable object and an immovable object versus an unstoppable force. And I think the unstoppable force, being the United States, is going to, I do think they're going to strike. I really do, guys. I don't see any other way around it now. They're talking about peace negotiations and having a deal and making a deal. I think we're at that stage now where the Iranians are like, yeah, this is going to happen. It's pointless coming to a deal. It's going to happen either way. Let's just get it over and done with. That's where I'd be if I was the Iranians. Also, then you've got to put the context and the backdrop of what's happening in Iran. Let's not forget what's just happened in Iran. When was it? December into January. There was this huge civil uprising in Iran. So the dynamics of the Iranian people are that they want a regime change. I don't think they're happy living under Sharia anymore. I think they want to live under more liberal governance, right? So that's where we are, guys. Now listen, this needs to be a trigger warning. If you live in the United Kingdom, guys, this is an absolute trigger warning, because if those bombs go, if those missiles drop, then that's going to be the activation of sleeper cells becomes more likely, right? Oh, Victor Meldrew has gifted 1 Real Raven 1 membership. Thank you so much, Victor Meldrew. Thank you so much. And Googleinos is saying pilot killed as Iran fighter jet crashes in Hamadan province. Right. Okay. Well, first of all, straight away, let's find this. I'm smelling a bit of a conspiracy here, because we can only speculate that there are a lot of drones already operating around there, right? Right, so 6 hours ago, let me share this with you guys. So from 6 hours ago, right, let's find where this province is. So Iranian Air Force pilot crashes in Western province, with 1 pilot dead, jet goes down during nighttime training. Right, okay, so let's see where, sorry guys, let me just try and find out where that is in Iran and look what I think it could potentially be. Okay. Right, sorry, how rude of me. Right, let me share this. Let me share this with you guys. So this is the Hamadan province. So that's the Hamadan province there. I don't know where this aircraft went down, but they're saying that's the Hamadan province. That's too far from the Caspian Sea, and it's too far from the Persian Gulf for interference with quadcopters, although there could be some, there could be some drone activity out there. It would have to be fixed wing, potentially from the Caspian Sea, although I think that unlikely at this point. So it could just be an accident, guys. It could just be an accident. Everything that happens on the news, right, especially in a time of war, everything that you see on the news, you have to take it as propaganda, right? You have to take it as propaganda, because I smell plastic burning. Probably somebody in the allotments, because all this information that's being released by the Iranians, by whoever, it's being released for a reason, and they're obviously not going to want to give the wrong impression. So if it is, some sort of drone activity that these, the Iranian fighters have been activated to go and, search and destroy, it will probably be these sort of drones, because they're the ones you would send in, right? They're the ones you would send in fixed wings. These ones, you just wouldn't be able to get them in, guys. They don't have the range. Those ones are quite short range with the quadcopters. The Tankler is saying, I'm conservative, anti-war, but I'm also a live and let live guy. Well, I would say I'm a conservative anti-war as well. I would say I'm absolutely conservative. I'd say I'm anti-war and pro space exploration. Brett Nash is saying, believe me, look into the 1960s Iran, all Christian peoples. It's very difficult to not see it's very difficult to not see what's happening in Iran and not make the connections to what's happening in the United Kingdom right now. And it's a fascinating side-by-side. It's a fascinating side-by-side. It's a fascinating side-by-side analysis. It is. It's a fascinating side-by-side analysis of look what happened in Iran in the 80s, right? Look what happened in Iran in the 80s. And then look what's happening now in Britain. And the similarities are phenomenal. Victor Meldrew is saying, I tried buying a super chat to say this. All right, okay. It will not. Right. I don't know how it works, guys. I don't know how it works. I insist you watch more than one video from this channel. Flat Out Earth, Terry R. Richard. Right. Are we saying the Earth's flat, guys? I've not seen any credible evidence that the Earth is flat. Guys, honestly, I've not seen any credible evidence that the Earth is flat. Right, let me try and get this up. I'll get his channel. Right, is that his channel, Flat Out Earth? Flat Out Earth. Give me a second. Is it on YouTube? Right, I'll leave that open. I'll leave that open. I'll have to come back to it. I can't. I obviously can't do it now, but I will. I'll have a look at those. Time is flat. Is saying up the king up the king goes round the ship. I don't know, guys. Some of the names here are fantastic. Brett is saying, though, it's flat. Oh, no. Flat out truth. Right. Flat out. Right. I've just opened it up on YouTube there. I'll have to have a look at, obviously I can't do it now. Right. Everybody's saying the Earth is flat. I don't think it is, guys. Honestly, I don't think the Earth's flat. So, okay, right. Let's just go with this, guys, for 2 seconds, right? Let's just go 2 seconds, all right? Let's give it 30 seconds, right? If the Earth is flat, does that mean there are other planets out there? Are there other planets out there? And if there are other planets, are those other planets, are they flat as well? Like, I don't know, guys. If the Earth is flat, then look, guys, listen, I'll be honest with you. I will be brutally honest with everyone right now, okay? I don't know whether I'm coming or going. Some of the crazy things I've seen in the last 6 months, the Epstein files, the references to Gilgamesh, aliens, like Donald Trump's releasing information on aliens today. Sorry, a couple of hours ago, he announced that. And I'm going to come and do another video on that. Listen, guys, I'm not ruling anything out. I'm just saying, can somebody present me the evidence, right? Talking Drawing with Shane Davis is saying, thank you for the super as well, Talking Drawing. You should be a guest on my show. Sometimes we get 700 live viewers. Friday at 11 EST. Send me Talking Drawing. How do you send me an invitation, mate? Send me an invitation. Like, how do we do it? Like, send me an invitation. I don't know send me an invitation. So I'll say yes. In fact, as long as that Friday Eastern Standard Time doesn't. Oh God, that's going to be real early in the morning for me. Do you know what? I've said I'll do it, so I will. I've said I'll do it, so I will. I've said I'll do it, so I will. If you send me an invitation, I will. I don't know how you would invite me. Whatever, but yeah, I will. So talking drawings with Shane Davis. Throw me an invitation, and we'll make it happen, mate. Right, there's so many. Like, there's quite a lot of people saying the Earth is flat. I'm gonna leave it there for now, right? Satellites prove it's round like the moon. When astronauts go to space, gravity rounds their heart. I don't know what that means. Right, let me just find you now on X. Is that right? Sorry, guys, I do apologize for this. But no, I'm not apologizing because I'm trying to get on Talking Drawings with Shane Davis's. Right, let me try and find it here. Talking Drawings with Shane Davis. I'm just going to search for you now. Talking. I'm getting right. Let me talking. Right, I can't find you. Can you send me a message on X or Twitter? Can you send me a message on X? I can't find you. Twitter's a big place. So, Shane Davis, Talking Drawings with Shane Davis. Can you send me a message on X, and I'll do that, and just yeah. So yes is the answer. Yes is the answer. Right, listen, guys, let's jump back on track, okay? Let's jump back on track because you are living in absolute wild times now. And this video is a trigger warning. Yes, it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is an absolute trigger warning for each and every person if you live in the United Kingdom. It's looking increasingly likely that the United States are going to strike Iran. Now, look, guys, I'm not just... I did say this was coming 2 years ago. I said March 2026, whatever. We are here now, heading into March 2026, and things look worse than ever. Trump is saying if the Iranians do not come to a nuclear deal, excuse me, Donald Trump is saying, well, he was speaking yesterday at the, what was it? The new Board of Peace, his newly formed Board of Peace, his new Board of Peace in the Middle East. That kind of sounds like a war reconstruction thing, right? That's what it sounds like to me. Anyway, he was also speaking on Air Force One. The president was blunt. He said the world would know within 10 days whether a deal was possible, but then extended that to a maximum of 15 days. His words: we're either going to get a deal done or it's going to be very unfortunate to them. And then he said, very bad things will happen, such bad things. We got some great hardware in there, and the United States have got some really terrible military equipment. They didn't, that's what he's saying. What he's talking about there, bad things will happen if Tehran does not come to the table and agree to prevent that they will never have a nuclear weapon and that they can stop being a threat to regional security. Remember, this is not empty rhetoric anymore. The United States are building up its military presence with not one, not two, but potentially 3 aircraft, strike carrier groups in that region. They've sent in a shit ton of planes. The USS Abraham Lincoln's already there. The USS Gerald R. Ford is on its way. This is the biggest U.S. military buildups in the Middle East since the Gulf War. There's hundreds of fighter jets, F-35s, F-22s, F-16s, F-18s, F-15 fighting Falcons. All sorts of those, they've been deployed through the United Kingdom, through Europe, to bases across the Gulf. Lots of airborne refueling tankers, and the whole area looks like it's a go. When you talk about, we all think about, when we talk about aircraft carriers, right? You naturally think of fast jets and offensive, which it is. Also on there, you can land helicopters, strike capabilities, special forces kit and equipment. So on those aircraft carriers as well, they will have special forces equipment, so they can do those high value targets, right? They can take high value targets, and we know they can because they just literally went in and took the president of Venezuela. Now, this matters hugely if you're in the United Kingdom, because for Britain, we are already seeing strains on the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has so far withheld consent for RAF sites to be used for strikes in Iran. I'm going to say this is to try and disrupt or delay activation of sleeper cells in the United Kingdom. Nothing else. Remember, we have a huge amount of, from mainstream media, we have a lot of sleeper cells, Iranian-backed sleeper cells operating in the United Kingdom. That's the reality, guys. That is the absolute reality of the situation. And when this happens, have this as a trigger warning for everyone, guys. Literally be a trigger warning for everyone. When this happens, and I'm talking about street, I'm talking about airstrikes. When the airstrikes happen, that is going to raise drastically the likelihood of sleeper cells being activated in the United Kingdom. There's and even whether whether these sleeper cells get the big thumbs up or not, you've also got the sleeper cells. Right. Okay, right. Sorry. Shane Davis Art. Right, let me find Shane Davis Art. Give me a second. Right, I think I've got you. I think, hang on. Right, I've just followed you back, mate. Right, so I think we can message each other now. So I've just followed you. I'll send you a message now. I'll just send you a message. Oh, password? I need a password. What's my password? I don't know what my passcode is. Right, I'll have to do it on my phone. Right, I don't know my passcode. Right. Hang on. Oh, got my little heart going. Ah, right, you sent me a message. Right, okay, I've got it. Right, okay. I've just sent you an app back, okay? Right, okay, so let's figure out a time and a place. Right, that was emotional, but we got there in the end, ladies and gentlemen. We got there in the end. Right, let me jump down. Right, guys, listen, there's loads of comments on the chat here. Donna Prepper, US fighter jets scrambled to intercept at least 5 Russian warplanes over Alaska. Ladies and gentlemen, this is all going to go down very soon. Very soon. You know, does anyone play chess? I love a game of chess. I play against the computer, and it's like on my phone, and it's really hard. It is. It's really hard playing chess on your phone. Anyway, you get to a situation when you're playing chess, right? You're moving your pieces slowly and slowly and slowly, right? And you get to a point in every game, right, where it just goes, and you don't know where those chips are going to land. Like, you get to that situation, and you're like, right, I'm covering him and he's covering him, but that one's left vulnerable. But I know if he takes that one, he's going to move that out of the place. And, that bishop won't be covering, but is he going to take that? Is that bishop going to move that far forwards? And, you don't know what's going on. That's where we are at the moment. The pieces on the board are being moved. And it's just, and honestly, like, when this goes down, it will happen really quickly. Sean, spying on us. Who's spying on you? Bandagain is saying, Sean, Starmer's been bending over for Muslims. Why would they rock with the boat? No, I agree, mate. I agree. I absolutely agree with you. That's what I've been saying, from day one. The reason Oh, hang on. Donna's jumping back on. Short context. 2 bombers, 2 fighter jets, and a spy plane observed over coastal defense identification zone, prompting US to send out 9 aircraft of its own to escort them clear. A lot of these incursions are just that, they're just testing the defenses. I don't think the Russians are under any illusion that they can take out, the Russians are under no illusion. They don't have the ability to take out the US Air Force. So I think this would be maybe a probing attack to see, probing venture to see what's going on elsewhere and why. Victor Meldrew is saying, yes, I play. Right. Control P gets your passwords. Really? I don't know about that. Right, guys, there's loads of comments on the chat. I'm literally just going to jump to the bottom. Brittany is saying, I don't believe anything in the mainstream. It's all bread and circuses. Watch Wag the Dog. Brett Nash is saying, read the Bible, then you know what is going on. I struggle, guys, listen, right? I struggle with all this, right? Which version of the Bible? Which version of the Bible should we read? Are we talking about the Ethiopian Orthodox version of the Bible? Because that's the oldest version of the Bible, and that's got, I think, 17 more books in it than the rest of the Bible has. Are we talking about just the Old Testament? Are we talking about just the New Testament? Are we talking about the King James's Bible? So, which version of the Bible is the right one? Because they all get little updates and stuff. I'd love to go and see that one. I'd love to see that. I'd love to go to where is it? Honestly, guys, I'd love to go to Ethiopia and see that see the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible. Donna is saying the USS Gerald Ford strike carrier group is passing through the Strait of Gibraltar. Okay, so it's probably going to be. I mean, is it going to go through Suez? Is it going to go through the Suez Canal? It will be massively vulnerable going through. It will be massively vulnerable going through the Suez Canal. It might just stay in the Mediterranean. Sean Pearsons is saying, only through our Lord Jesus Christ will you find God. Victor Meldrew is saying, Ethiopia first. King James made Ethiopia Bible into English. Okay, so, all right, so this is what gets me, right? There's the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, and that has 17 more books in it. I think it's 17 more books. 17 more books in it than the King James Bible. So, which Bible are we to believe? If the Bible is the word of God, why didn't you leave all the books in them? Why have you taken books out? So I really do struggle with it. Donna is saying Norway is pulling military personnel out of the Middle East. Yeah, and I think Poland put a message out as well to all people to evacuate. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back on track. Let's jump back on track. The crux of this live stream has been the escalating situation in the Middle East between Iran and the United States. On one hand, you have the United States moving down there with their House Resolution 599, which clearly states that the United States would not take any. The United States will not allow. It's unacceptable for the Islamic Republic. I can't remember it exactly. It's unacceptable for the. It's unacceptable for the Islamic Republic of Iran to gain nuclear missiles, and the United States will not let that happen, or whatever. I can't remember it verbatim, although whatever. It doesn't really matter. On the other hand, you've got the Iranians saying, if we don't have a nuclear weapon, you guys are just going to come and invade us. So now we have that situation in the Middle East. I've been saying for over 2 years, March 2026 is going to be the crescendo when all this happens. It turns out I wasn't far off the mark, was I? Unless, you know, even if I wasn't, even if I was off the mark. Right now, as we speak, more assets are moving closer, and the Iranians are fortifying their locations. If I were there, and that we know this is happening, they are pouring tons and tons and tons and tons of concrete on those facilities. So let's just say that today, the difficulty level for an airstrike into Iran is a difficulty level of, I don't know, say it's a difficulty level 5. In a week, it's going to be difficulty level 10. In 2 weeks, it's going to be 20 because they are just pouring more and more concrete and bolstering their defenses. So it's kind of one of those situations where you can go now and you're not fully ready, but neither are they. Or you can wait until you're fully ready, but then they will be more ready as well. So that's where we are right now. We could see an airstrike today, guys. We could see an airstrike early hours in the morning. We could see an airstrike this weekend. If that happens, and I want this to be the final thought, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm going to close this down after this. If we see those airstrikes go in, let that everybody be your first trigger warning in the United Kingdom, okay? Let that be your first trigger warning in the United Kingdom, because that's going to mean the activation of sleeper cells becomes more likely. Oh, hang on a minute. Google Enos is saying new articles. Where are the new articles? Where are the new articles, guys? Donna is saying 2 aircraft carriers, including the USS Gerald R. Ford, 20 warships and submarines, 200 attack. Jesus Christ. You don't want none of that, right? You do not want none of that. You do not want none of that. Nobody wants none of that. That's taking anyone to the candy shop, right? You're not resisting that. It doesn't matter who you are. Israel preparing in close coordination, no change to civil guidelines. US and Chinese jets briefly faced off over the Korean Peninsula. Everything's going crackers, guys. It really is. Everything's going crackers. Oh, hang on. And Victor Meldrew has gifted another membership. Right, guys. Thank you for gifting the membership. But Victor Meldrew, are you doing that because you're trying to get a message and you can't send supers? And US jets scrambled over to intercept Russian warplanes. Nobody's daft enough, right? Nobody's crazy enough to take the US on, to take the US Air Force on. However, actually, do you know what? Let's think about this. No. This is actually a quite smart move from the Russians. Because what the Russians are doing is the Russians are thinking, right, okay, so the United States have, so the Russians are clearly thinking, right, the United States have sent all their air power to the Middle East. Can we probe them? Let's go and see what happens. I think that's what's happening here, guys. And as we understand, there have been, there we go. 9 US fighter jets have been scrambled to intercept the Russian aircraft. So, obviously, it was a non-starter for them. Senators, I find you with the mirrors. Sent it as I found you with mirrors fake, whether love your content, love the brother from another brother. Okay, I don't know what that means. But thank you anyway. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Victor Meldrew's giving free free memberships. Right, listen, guys, I am going to close this down now. I am. Yes. So what we're saying here is 2 carrier groups, and I think there's a third one on its way down there, guys, is a lot of battle equipment. It takes a lot of logistics and money to move that much gear, manpower. Russia could see. I agree, guys. And what you've got to understand is Donald Trump's a businessman, right? Donald Trump is a businessman, and he's not going to want to make rash business decisions, right? He's seen that as an expenditure. He's seen that as money spent. So he's going to want to, he's not going to want to waste that money, right? Can you imagine how much it costs to send all that shit down there? It's phenomenal. Victor Meldrew is saying, brother from another mother, I find you when the Mirror was saying we were going to get Beast from the East. Ah, right. Okay. I understand. Oh, right. I've got some work coming. No, don't worry, guys. Listen, I get lots of typos, and sometimes I just try and go through them and try and like figure out what they actually mean. Holly is saying, please put a thumbs up, guys. Yeah, I think everybody needs to put a thumbs up. Listen, guys, I am going to close this down now. I keep saying this. I know that. I'm going to close this down now. You guys have been fantastic and beautiful and amazing and beautiful. I am going to close this down now. I'm going to be back on shortly. And I'm going to do another video, and I'm going to be talking about UFOs, UAPs, and Donald Trump agreeing to release information, agreeing to release information on UFOs, UAPs, and all that stuff. So, like, we're in wild times right now. We are. And let me leave you with that, guys, okay? If you see those airstrikes go in and I'm not able to get to my computer, take that as a trigger warning that has raised the likelihood of sleeper cells being activated in the United Kingdom. And not just official sleeper cells. You'll always get those crackers people who want to go cracky, stabby, stabby, blowy, blowy, or rammy, and that will happen. That will absolutely happen, guys. Anyway, I bid you good afternoon. I bid you good evening, whatever time of day it is when you guys are watching this. And I will be back on shortly.